At my engagement party, my mom raised a glass to toast. Then took back my $45,000 wedding fund and gave it to my sister. She slapped me. In front of everyone. For saying no. 10 minutes later, she was in handcuffs, and my entire family turned on me. Charlotte Johnson is my name, and I'm 30 years old. Brookmere is a mid-sized city where I work as a graphic designer. Even if everything had been going smoothly, it seemed like the start of something much more significant. As I surveyed the dimly lit eatery, I couldn't help but smile. Everything seemed ideal. The aroma of fresh flowers in the air, the camel centerpieces, and the soft background music. We had an engagement party tonight. And Charles and I were finally moving forward after 4 years of dating. We would get married in 4 months. As tall and warm as ever, Charles was standing next to me, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back. He joined the marketing agency where I worked in the creative department 4 years ago, which is when I first met him. After we clicked during a company off-site retreat, everything just fell into place. He was intelligent, trustworthy, and kind. We had established a life based on mutual respect, trust, and objectives. Tonight, we celebrated our engagement with our closest friends and family. As I looked across the room, I saw a lot of people I knew grinning back at me. Charles' parents, old college pals, co-workers, and even some cousins I hadn't seen in a long time. Naturally, my own family was present, or the majority of them were. At a table close to the front were my parents, Owen Johnson and Erica Johnson. Their smiles appeared forced and rigid. Chloe, my younger sister, was also present, idly browsing through her phone as if she had been forced to come. Given her history, this is most likely her third phone this year. We were never particularly close, and the gap just widened over time. I ignored the uncomfortable tension, though. We weren't talking about previous family dynamics tonight, it was about commitment, love, and the next phase of life. Or so I believed. Erica got up and used a spoon to gently tap her wine glass. Conversation ceased as everyone's attention was drawn to her as the sound reverberated throughout the room. With a smile that stopped short of her eyes, she asked, "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" First, I want to say congratulations to my beautiful daughter Charlotte and her wonderful fiancé Charles. I hope your marriage is full of love, joy, and happiness. There was a round of raised glasses and courteous applause. I grinned and thanked Charles for squeezing my hand beneath the table. However, my mother's voice became abruptly colder and more purposeful when she spoke again. She remarked, "I also have an important announcement to make," as she put down her drink. After talking it over with Owen, we've decided to give Charlotte's $45,000 wedding fund to Chloe instead. The room fell silent. Confident that I must have misheard her, I blinked. I looked around, expecting someone else to join in the laughter, and let forth a small chuckle. "That's funny, Mom," I answered, attempting to seem lighthearted. "But that money is mine. I'm not giving it away." Erica's smile vanished in an instant. Lips pushed into a narrow line, her face hardened. "This isn't a joke, Charlotte," she snapped. "Your sister is getting married a few months after you, and she needs the money more than you do." My face felt a flood of heat. My stomach constricted. "What are you talking about? That's my money, Mom. You and Dad gave it to me. It's in my personal account." "Honey," she began in a tone of artificial serenity. "You're doing a great job, and Charles is too. Chloe and her fiancé are having a hard time, and she deserves a lovely wedding as well." My hands started to shake. Trying to stabilize myself, I got up. "We've already planned our wedding with that money. We've been careful. We're being smart with it. We even want to use part of it for a down payment on a home. You can't just take it away." Chloe almost knocked over her drink when she abruptly pushed her chair back and leaped to her feet. She yelled, "Charlotte, stop being so self-centered. You could have offered to share it a long time ago. You know I need it more than you do." My jaw clenched as I turned to face her. "This isn't about need, Chloe. It's about what's right. I planned ahead. You blew through your own fund, and now you expect me to just hand mine over." "She lives simply," asserted my mother. "She doesn't have much, and her fiancé is doing the best he can. You've always had more." I shot back, crossing my arms over my chest. "I've always worked harder," I yelled back. "I follow the rules. I was saved. I planned. I don't care how you spin it. I'm not giving you my money." Erica's cheeks turned red. The room's tension reached an intolerable level. Charles tried to soothe me by putting a gentle hand on my arm, but I refused to give up. Then, in what seemed like an eternity, my mother came forward and gave me a heavy slap across the face. Like a whip crack, the sound reverberated throughout the eatery. I jerked my head sideways. My eyes instantly swelled and my cheek ached, not only from the pain but also from the shock. There was utter silence in the room. Nobody made a move. Chloe appeared astounded as well. Slowly, I turned back to face my mom. I spoke in a steady, low voice. "You don't get to hit me just because I said no." Someone at one of the surrounding tables took a sharp gasp. Then I heard it. A server at the bar talking softly into a phone. "Yes, hello. I need to report an assault. It happened just now at Alden's Bistro." After a few minutes, sirens could be heard coming toward the eatery. The guests were silent, with several of them glancing at me and others looking at their plates clumsily, not knowing how to respond. I remained mute as I took in the shock of what had just transpired. Even though my cheek hurt, the emotional sting was more intense. While my father quietly drew Erica away in an attempt to soothe her, Charles stood next to me, his jaw clenched. Two officers in uniform came inside the restaurant a little while later. One of them came over to our table and inquired as to if I had been attacked. I confirmed what had transpired with a low nod. A server who was close by came forward to describe the slap, describing how Erica had hit me in front of the diners. Erica attempted to justify herself by claiming that it was only a family issue, but the officer patiently explained that public violence is illegal regardless of a person's relationship. I was asked if I wanted to file charges by the officers. Despite my heart thumping in my chest, I spoke steadily. "Yes, I do." Right there in the restaurant, they arrested Erica. I saw Chloe looking at me in shock as the officers brought her out in handcuffs, as if I were the bad guy for just defending myself. My dad silently followed them out. The visitors were uncertain whether to applaud, weep, or depart, and the room remained motionless. Charles never once released my hand during the entire event. After consulting with my attorney, I formally filed a report and sought criminal charges later that evening. The following day, Erica was freed on bail, but the legal proceedings had already started. We went back to court a few weeks later, but this time it was for the smack rather than the money. Erica stepped before the court, who went over the restaurant's security footage and witness accounts. There was no denying the evidence. She was given a $2,000 fine, 6 months of probation, and required anger management training after being found guilty of misdemeanor assault. Fortunately, the judge offered her a 30-day suspended jail term rather than actual jail time. She avoided making eye contact with me while I sat in the courtroom. And I got up, looked directly into my mother's eyes, and responded unequivocally when the judge asked if I had anything to say. I didn't expect this from my mother, but no one is above the law. I was mistaken to believe that things would settle down once the trial drama subsided. Our family's division was only widened by the slap and the arrest. Erica didn't make contact. I was blocked on everything by Chloe. What about my dad? Well, he decided to keep quiet. However, the true storm was yet to come. When I returned home 3 weeks after the engagement party, I saw a hefty envelope in my mailbox. It was the kind of envelope that makes your stomach turn. It came from Hall & Sutter Associates, a law company. There was an official notice inside. My parents were suing me for the $45,000 fund, saying I had misappropriated it and it was only intended for tuition costs. I initially chuckled incredulously. When I was 17, I put the money aside in a custodial account, so it was legally mine. I was given complete control when I was 19. Chloe and I were informed by our parents that we may spend our money whatever we pleased after we reached adulthood. That I had been cautious, realistic, and goal-oriented was the only difference. I utilized some of it to pay for my education at a public university, used a scholarship to cover the remaining amount, and let the account grow. I was continually making plans for the future. In contrast, Chloe attended an expensive private school, left after 2.5 years, and used the remaining funds to start a boutique that collapsed after 7 months. She squandered her cash on a launch party with hired influencers, an expensive picture shoot, and branding. When all fell apart, all she had left was a fancy car that she had bought on a whim because she thought she would succeed. She and my parents wanted my money now that she had lost it. I engaged Brianna Lane, a shrewd, composed, and self-assured lawyer. She examined my papers, then turned to face me and said, "They don't have a case. The account was gifted to you. There are no restrictions on how you use it. Any mention of a verbal agreement won't hold up in court." I nodded, both relieved and irritated. I questioned, "Then why go through all this?" Brianna gave a shrug. "Because some people would rather drag you down than admit they made mistakes, especially when they're protecting someone else." Suddenly, I saw that I was facing not just a court battle but a lifetime of imbalance, denial, and partiality. My mom wasn't merely attempting to embezzle my money. She was making me pay for Chloe's failure in an attempt to make up for it. The ensuing months were among the most taxing of my life. Everything I had, including time, energy, and even concentration at work, was devoured by the legal matter. There were several preliminary hearings, emails, papers, and demands for discovery. I was constantly reminded that this was more than just a lawsuit when I walked into the courtroom and saw my parents seated next to Chloe, all of them averting their eyes from me. It was treachery. At the hearings, Chloe displayed smug looks, obviously sure that she would somehow take the money that I had been safeguarding for years. She spoke before the court during one especially heated session, stating that the fund had always been intended only for college. "Did you use all of your funds strictly for college expenses?" my lawyer asked her bluntly as he stood up. Chloe paused. A mumbled, "Well, not all of it," she said. Brianna gave a nod. "In fact, you dropped out of college and used the remaining amount for your own business venture and a luxury car, didn't you?" Chloe's expression tensed. "That's not relevant. However, it was highly pertinent." Brianna went on. "So if there were supposedly strict conditions on this money, why were you allowed to use it for non-educational purposes without objection?" Chloe was unable to respond. As the courtroom listened, I sat silently, my heart racing yet steady. My parents' partiality, Chloe's carelessness, and their attempt to hide her shortcomings by punishing me were all suddenly coming to light. Charles continued to be my anchor outside the courtroom. He attended every hearing, supported me during every obstacle, and never stopped reminding me that it was important to stand my ground. However, it wasn't simple. It seemed like everything I had planned for my wedding was being taken away from me because of the legal bills and emotional exhaustion. A portion of our planning had to be postponed. I didn't get any sleep. Sometimes I cried in the middle of the night, and other times I cried in between work meetings. However, I never gave up. I realized that money wasn't the only factor in this fight. For once, it was about holding my family accountable, about being seen, and about being valued. Things got worse just when I believed they couldn't get much worse. My cousin Melissa called me when I was at home going over a list of wedding vendors. She said empathetically, "Charlotte, I just wanted to say I'm sorry about the wedding being canceled." A beat skipped in my chest. "What are you talking about? The wedding's still on." A pause occurred. "Your mom called me last week. She said you and Charles broke up because he cheated on you." My mouth fell open. In the hour that followed, I got 3 more calls from bewildered friends and distant family members who wanted to know why the wedding had been canceled. Even phony emails purporting to be from me had been received, claiming that the event had been canceled. Nothing was in my sent folder when I checked my email, indicating that someone had created a phony account to mimic me. I was taken aback. My first thought was of Chloe. The trend was obvious, but I had no evidence. Legal charges were just the beginning of the sabotage. It had turned personal. One of the few family members who hadn't chosen a side was my mom's sister, Aunt Mara, whom I called. "I was about to call you," she sighed. "Your mother's been telling people you're lying about Charles, that you're unstable, and that the wedding was never supposed to happen." Weary, I reclined against the wall. I questioned, "Why is she doing this?" "Because she's protecting Chloe," Aunt Mara said kindly, in response. "She's always protected her, even when she didn't deserve it. I love Chloe, but your mom is enabling her. And now she's dragging you through the mud to make her look better." The treachery was more profound than any testimony given in court. In an attempt to gain compassion for my sister, my own mother was attempting to damage my reputation. When Charles entered that night, he saw my face right away. He said, "What's wrong?" I told him what Melissa had stated and gave him screenshots of the phony emails. He wasn't shocked, but he was angry. His words were bleak. "Your sister just contacted me too," he added. "She said she had proof that you were cheating on me. She sent photos." I looked at him horrified. He took out his phone and displayed a number of shoddy, obviously altered pictures of a woman standing next to an unknown man with my face pasted onto another body. It was extremely distressing but also hilariously awful. Charles gave a headshake. "Of course I didn't believe it, but my parents saw them too. Your family is trying to destroy everything we're building." At that point, we made the decision to act. For the wedding, we engaged a professional security company and sent in pictures of Erica, Owen, and Chloe with the directive that none of them be let entry. I didn't want to let them destroy anything else, even though I detested that it had come to this. I woke up the morning of the wedding feeling a weird mix of dread and excitement. Just outside of Brookmere, Charles and I had selected a stunning outdoor location. Elegant and intimate without being over the top. The green area was lined with white seats facing a wooden bridge covered in fresh flowers. As guests started to arrive, I stood in my dress in the wedding room, fixing my veil. Nerves tightened in my gut, not because of the vows, but because of what I knew was still possible. 2 skilled security officers were posted at the venue's entrance, and they were under tight orders to bar members of my immediate family from entering. I had reviewed all the details with Charles. I was still unable to unwind. The door of the bridal suite was knocked on at about 2:15. Lowering his voice, one of the guards entered. "Miss Johnson," he began carefully. "We've just detained a young woman attempting to enter through the back service gate. She matches the photo you gave us. Your sister, Chloe." My heart was racing. I inquired, "Was she alone?" "Yes," he replied. "But she was carrying a tote bag. When we opened it, we found a large can of red paint." My throat tightened each breath. She intended to destroy the bridal gown, the location, and the guests. Disbelief, sadness, and rage struggled for room in my chest. The guard asked, "Do you want to press charges? We can contact the local sheriff right now." I paused. I had every reason to call the police again after the slap, the lawsuit, the falsehoods, the altered photos, and now this. However, this was the day of my wedding. Their disarray had already cost me enough. I finally answered, "No," in a flat voice. "Just make sure she's removed from the property and doesn't come back. Please also check that my parents haven't tried to sneak in." He gave a nod and walked away. I slid onto a chair close by and tried not to cry. Isabel, my closest friend, was kneeling next to me. She muttered, "What happened?" My voice was hardly steady when I glanced at her. Chloe tried to sneak in with a can of paint. She was going to destroy everything. After widening in surprise, Isabel's eyes hardened in rage. With firmness she stated, "You know what? That means you win. They couldn't stop your happiness, so they tried to ruin it. But you stopped them. You stood your ground. Now go marry the man who stood by you through all of this. You deserve every bit of this day." I brushed away my tears, inhaled deeply, and got to my feet. My dad's brother, my Uncle Brian, escorted me down the aisle. Charles was waiting beneath the arch with his eyes fixed on mine as I entered the garden. The rest of the world vanished in that instant. The pain, the tears, the court dates, the betrayal, all of it passed. Love was the theme of today. Ours. It was a wonderful and touching ceremony. Our vows were filled with words of collaboration, strength, and loyalty. The guests erupted in cheers when the officiant declared us husband and wife. I felt light for the first time in months. Free. The reception exceeded our expectations in every way. Heartfelt statements from those who had supported us throughout it all were interspersed with music and fun. Isabel's toast brought tears to my eyes, the kind of emotions that come only after you've weathered a storm and found calm on the other side. Like nothing else mattered, Charles and I celebrated, danced, and ate. Actually, nothing else did. Almost everyone remarked on how lovely the location appeared, how joyful we appeared, and how the day was filled with true love. Despite hearing tidbits of the drama, a few guests respected our quiet. During dinner, one aunt murmured, "I'm so proud of you for standing your ground." Long after the cake was sliced and the last song was sung, her words continued to resonate with me. Charles and I ran hand in hand through a shower of rice that our friends had thrown as the night came to an end, hidden under a starry sky. We both smiled like children as we got into the car that was waiting at the curb and drove away. I took a moment to spin around and gaze at the venue's distant brightness. My sister had attempted, but failed, to destroy that moment. All of them had. We had the most amazing honeymoon. A tranquil seaside town far from Brookmere for 3 weeks. No courts, avoid conflicts, only the man I loved, the sun, and the waves. I took a deep breath. Take a deep breath. For the first time in a long, long time. I felt prepared to proceed once we got home. We concentrated on moving into our apartment, making plans for the future, and moving on from the past. I saw my cousin Rachel at the grocery store a few weeks later. "Did you hear about Chloe's wedding?" she inquired after giving him a quick embrace. I arched an eyebrow. My response was, "We're not exactly talking." "Your parents took out a loan to pay for everything," she stated. "It's going to be at the Grand Garden Hotel downtown, super lavish. They're flying in a chef from out of state. It's a whole production." I couldn't resist chuckling quietly. They were obviously going above and beyond for Chloe, even if it meant incurring debt. Rachel gently questioned, "Are you going if she invites you?" "She tried to ruin my wedding with a can of paint," I angrily remarked. "So no, I won't be attending." Oddly enough, no invitation was ever sent. Later, I learned via family rumors that a number of relatives turned down invites to Chloe's wedding because they were uncomfortable with the way I had been handled. Some people were courteous about it. Others spoke up. In any case, the gleam had begun to fade, both for Chloe and for my parents. The $45,000 had been used just as Charles and I had intended. Modest, purposeful, and full of loved ones, our wedding was everything we could have imagined. We also put the remaining funds toward a down payment on a beautiful apartment outside of the city. The mortgage was affordable given our combined wages, and for the first time, we were accumulating equity rather than spending it all on rent. Despite its diminutive size, our home was ours. Built with patience and difficult choices rather than handouts. After the wedding, my life found a rhythm I wasn't aware I needed. On the weekends, Charles and I decorated our new flat. Nothing extravagant, just walls covered with pictures from our wedding and trips, shelves we put up ourselves, and a couch we saved for. Charles giggled as he fumbled with an IKEA dresser one Saturday afternoon while we were arranging the guest room. "Who do you think will be our first overnight guest?" questioned him. I stopped, holding a screwdriver. My thoughts briefly turned to my parents. In a distant reality, they might say they're sorry. Perhaps Chloe would mature and accept accountability for her actions. I wasn't holding my breath though. Finally, with a kind smile, I said, "Whoever it is, there'll be someone who genuinely cares about us." Holidays passed without any texts, calls, or invitations. Their absence was painful at first. That year, my birthday went by in silence, and I never heard my mother's voice wishing me a happy birthday for the first time. But then I thought of the slap, the lawsuit, the falsehoods, the paint, the phony pictures, and the attempt, motivated by jealousy, to ruin something innocent. And the agony gave way to understanding. Every now and then, Charles would ask me if I believed that my family and I would ever be at peace. Sincerely, I said, maybe one day. But if it ever happens, it'll take more than an apology. It'll take change. And I don't see that coming anytime soon. In the end, Chloe's wedding came and went. I heard it was extravagant, with matching designer outfits for the bridesmaids, champagne fountains, and a hired string quartet. However, a few important family members chose not to go because they were uneasy about the way my parents and sister treated me. Even worse, word spread that Owen and Erica had taken out a huge loan. In an attempt to make a statement and act as though the previous year hadn't occurred, they had thrown everything into that one event. However, it had, and people recalled. I came to a deep realization as Charles and I developed our marriage. Family is more than simply your genetic relatives. It's the individuals who respect your peace, encourage your boundaries, and rejoice in your victories. Yes, I had lost a lot. However, I had acquired a house. A husband who supported me no matter what. Friends and family who never wavered after seeing the truth. Above all else, I still had myself. I didn't break down. I refused to give in. I defended what I had created out of honor, not greed. We were able to purchase stability, a home, and a future thanks to the $45,000 investment. In reality, though, it granted us freedom. Freedom from coercion. Liberty from culpability. Freedom from a family that thought obedience was a prerequisite for love. I defended myself. And I prevailed. Not only in court, however, in life. We appreciate you viewing this moving tale. Please remember to like the video to express your support if you found it to be touching or relatable. We would love to hear your opinions, so please leave a comment below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new uploads if you like stories with strong emotions and satisfying endings that are inspired by real life.